Hey everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and in this episode of the Saturday Morning D&D show, we talk about the Stream of Many Eyes and the new Wizards of the Coast product, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, as well as our personal games in which we talk about downtime and how to spend money and how to award experience to your party and things like that. So let's dive right in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D show. My name is Jordan with the silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Saturday morning. Exciting June 2nd Saturday morning as the summer kicks off.
Yeah, I am a sleepy boy today, too, so I apologize for... I didn't stay up late. I woke up early for some reason, and I'm not sure, but Lucian and I were talking, and I'm just, like, yawning and out of it, so... if I am a sleepy boy today, are we live though? I don't see our transition. But yeah, so I'm sure everybody here is aware, but we'll talk about it because it's awesome. The Stream of Many Eyes announced their new Dungeons and Dragons module that's coming out in September, I believe, September 8th. Could be wrong about that. I'd have to like check again.
Yeah, put it on our doc, which I'm pulling up now.
But it's called Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and it's a heist adventure set in Waterdeep. And I totally was I was really excited for this, because I kind of called it. I said, like, wouldn't it be cool if they had an entire adventure that just took place in the city of Waterdeep? Like, I think that would be really cool. And me as a dungeon master, that's something I've been wanting to do, is like an urban city adventure, but I've never really figured out how because, I don't know, it's just... it always feels more epic to go on some long quest and they have to gather the 5 rings of blah 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 and come back and summon something. And so I don't know, I was really excited to see how they turn. Like, you can't just have like a fight against an owlbear in the middle of Waterdeep. Like, there's repercussions for fighting people, and you can't just like murder things that you find. So I don't know, there's going to be rules and regulations, and there's going to be shops, and how do you deal with all of that in a closed adventure like that? So I don't know. And they haven't released the level ranges for this yet, but I'm really hoping that it starts at like 5, maybe a little higher, and ends around 15 or so, just to kind of offset the 1 to 10 that we've been getting with a lot of the adventures lately. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah. So some of the things, there was a great stream they started last night at about 4 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah. And they went right into touring the set where they were, going to have all their stream games this weekend, which we'll be watching a lot of those. But then they also did a quick, they had Jeremy Crawford, they had Chris Perkins, they had Kate Welch, and they had Mike Murrows all sitting down with Anna. And they just talked about the book in general. And they talked about a lot of the art that's coming in the book and a lot about what they were going to do. And obviously urban adventure. Like, we haven't had an urban adventure set yet for 5th edition, so this is really kind of it. They did even say that they took a lot of inspiration from the city box set, which was back in the day, what you could do when you were going to role play in a really large city. So they went back to that to drum up some ideas and to get some things. So I thought that was kind of cool. They also wanted to highlight mechanics that maybe people weren't using as much. So like, there's mechanics in Xanathar's Guide that they put out that had to do with NPC villains and rivals. Yeah, and that was the big one. Comes back into the forefront here because they're going to use that quite a bit, or they reference it again. Chase mechanics from the Dungeons Master Guide, a way to do chases to make them fun and dramatic. Encourage downtime play. They said this is the first time they've had downtime play in a regular adventure. That's usually an adventure league kind of thing. Yeah. But in this one, there's a lot of downtime stuff that's going on where you're expected stuff might happen.
Yeah, and Chris Perkins was saying that, like, on the subject of the downtime stuff, that there is, like, you can do a whole bunch of the adventure and then have not side quests necessarily, but like all of a sudden they're going to drop this bomb that just kind of explains, like, oh my gosh, I didn't recognize that this was actually the adventure. I thought it was this, zig when they zagged, so to speak. And I think the downtime is going to come into that because you're going to have all of this, like, well, let's craft a magic item and let's do this, which also makes me think that it might be higher level, but like, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really excited.
Tell us about that. Yeah. They were going to say what levels was it meant to be, but I know one of the things, like even Blast Ronan says in chat, was talking about this is not a world-shattering adventure like all the other ones have been.
The death curse,
affecting
summoning Tiamat.
things.
Yeah.
The giants, you know, rampaging. But this is about, you know, just an adventure in. Now, it did sound like I saw this morning in the D&D Beyond short clip. Chris Perkins talked about, you know, if you're not able to stop the bad guys from getting the heist, the gold,
the money,
they're going to do terrible things with it.
Yeah,
so
they are bad
guys. It did seem like there's a bad way, there's a bad reason not to just do stuff, but it seems like there's a lot to it that allows you to deviate. There's a lot. He said there were 9 wards in Waterdeep. They're bringing back the big giant map. This is a big Ed Greenwood baby. I mean, Waterdeep is one of probably the most written about cities in Faerun. It's got to be. Like, it's in more books and more box sets. It's Baldur's Gates and games and stuff even go back down to Waterdeep. And
I want to say it's Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter, but that's probably just because there's video games based off of those, and there hasn't been one of Waterdeep. But but Waterdeep is, I mean, it's Waterdeep. It's huge. It's the crown of the North or whatever they call it. So.
Mike Burrows likes to talk about it like it's New York is the way. So in his mind, you can tell that's what he's equating New York to be. So you get this very cosmopolitan type city. You get this very big city that has a mixture of all cultures. It's not weird to see a tiefling, dwarf, an Aasimar, an Aarakocra, and their buddy halfling walking down the road as adventurers. That's not something that's out of sight in Waterdeep. But when you play out in the hinterlands, that's something that is a little bit more. Or they said you could play this adventure as a drow party, which I thought was interesting. The book helps you make sense of that. Whereas, you know, if you have a drow party and you're trying to play out in Silvery Moon or something, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to explain why that is allowed to happen.
I want to do an all dwarf party for this adventure. Just everybody has to play dwarf, all dwarf party. It's gonna be awesome. They're all after the gold. It's like, that just sounds so much fun for me.
9 dwarves and a halfling is where I'm thinking you should go.
Possibly, and they've got like a dragon has taken their home, and they have to see.
Yeah, nobody's thought of
that. Really super smart.
And they talked about a new mechanic about owning property. So like, I think one of the intro quests is about you get a deed to a place, which I thought was kind of cool. Immediately the people I'd heard about that started thinking about, the adventurers have a place of operations, like a home base. That's kind of a cool thing because we haven't really mechanically had a ton of, although that's what Matt Colville's Kickstarter was about, right? That's the meat of it.
I wonder
so
if
that's an interesting thing.
I mean, obviously they're separate publications. They're not talking to each other, but like, I wonder how much of that you could steal or incorporate into your game from Colville's book with this one. But I love the idea of owning property, or even like I'm doing something right now with my players where they came to me and said, Jordan, we have all this money. What can we use it for? Like, what can we do with all this money? And so I spent last week trying to come up with ways for them to use money. And I incorporated a lot of stuff from Xanathars because they have some good things about crafting magical items and things like that. And then I kind of made like a shopping list for them, then they can do some shopping. But it got me thinking, like, I would love to have one of my players say like, well, can I invest in something? Like, could I invest in this merchant ring and hopefully come back and have more money afterwards, kind of a thing? And there's so many possibilities with money and finance that I'm really curious about this adventure and how they're going to incorporate that.
Yeah, there could be almost like a little mini game that's going on behind the scenes. My original party that I played with the most roll their eyes when you say that, because every adventure I would always turn into, can I buy a brothel? Can I start a trading company at the same time we're adventuring? Like, I'm trying to shove all my money into this next trading company, and I want to buy 2 wagons because they're going to take stores from here and they're going to take it over to the other town. They're going to make a little bit of money, and I just want to come back and take that money. And everybody would roll their eyes at me at the table because I wanted to play a small economics game at the same time I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. And they're like, dude, we're trying to save the world, and you're trying to make like $50 on some parcels of wheat. What are you doing? I'm like, no, I'm just into it. I want to own the brothel, and I want to.
You're playing Settlers of Catan while the rest of us are trying to kill kobolds. So
there's definitely a lot of people that love that, and it's goes straight to my heart to be able to have some type of economic stuff happening behind the scenes. Because if you're going to get a 10,000 gold piece cache of treasure, you've got to have something that, if you don't have anything to spend it on, then why did we go get the 10,000 pieces of gold in the first place?
Right.
Like, if we don't need to spend it and there's nothing we can spend it on, why are we doing this?
Which is another reason I was excited for Colville's book, is that's like, you can spend your money on a wizard tower. You can spend your money on buying a castle. And now, like, my players are level 10 now. And I mean, the amount of money they're going to get from adventures from adventuring is only going to go up kind of exponentially, because that's how you roll it in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Really, I know one thing they said was that this can be a shorter adventure. One of the things they got from feedback is all the other adventures that they put out thus far have been ones that take a long time to go through from start to finish, as far as a campaign length time. And this one can be smaller, but it has more replayability than the other ones. Like, it would be kind of hard to probably replay Chol with the same characters, because you've already solved the death curse. If you've gotten through that and you did it, then there is no death curse. And then, you might stay in Chol and adventure, but you're not really doing that adventure again. Whereas this one sounds like there's different villains, and depending on what season it's in, different villains are doing different things, and they're trying to get this different money or amount of money. So you could even go through this multiple different times, stopping these things or helping these things, and it allows you to be a little more modular. That
was something I wasn't thinking of, is having your players go through it multiple times, because the way I interpreted that is that the DM won't get bored, because kind of like how I think it was Curse of Strahd, you had like a card game that you played at the beginning to decide like where certain artifacts were in the game. So it changed it up for the players, I guess, but it also changed it up for the DM so that he had something new to run. And I was thinking the same thing, like you have a new villain or something, but hypothetically, I guess you could run through it, and then maybe this other villain comes in and says, well, now I'm trying to get after the money, and they have to stop him as well.
Yeah. And the way they made it sound like it's very different when you're doing it in the summer, and each of the villains will have you in different wards of the city.
Yeah.
So not only you're trying to stop this one, and maybe that's down near the dock area, and that has to do with all the kinds of cool stuff that's happening down there. But then this other one might have you go into the Underdark, right? Or one might have you go up to where the nobles are, or where, whatever the different wards are. I know there are 9 of them. So I thought that was interesting, or at least they're making an attempt to make the module replayable for the same party. Also, like you said, the GM can play it a bunch of different times with a bunch of different groups, and it could be totally different.
And if it's shorter, I think that's smart. Like from a business standpoint, to just kind of be like, okay, we could either give you, I don't know, because like I buy the adventures because I steal a lot of them, but I have yet to run a Wizards of the Coast adventure. Like I haven't sat down and run Out of the Abyss or any of those, even though I've wanted to, but I've stolen little bits from it. And so if this is a modular thing where I can steal a whole bunch from it, like I'm more inclined to buy a book like this as a dungeon master, because I can manipulate it into my own campaign really easily. That being said, if it is like a fun adventure from, I don't know, 5 to 10 or something, and it's a shorter adventure, then taking the module and having a group of friends and playing it and finishing it in 2 months, and then being able to go to another group of friends and say, I want to run this again and run it again from them 2 months, rather than the, 12 to 16 months it takes you to get through Out of the Abyss or something.
I'm in a year and a half, and I'm still not through Storm King's Thunder.
Yeah. And that's like weekly, right? Like usually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part.
See? It's crazy. It's crazy.
So only other couple things they mentioned. They have a chapter in there that's a Volo's tour of Waterdeep. They give you a bunch of information about Waterdeep. So if you buy the book just for, hey, I would really like to know a lot about Waterdeep, then this book, you don't even have to run their heist or whatever they're going. You just have a lot of stuff. There you go, lore.
Yum.
They made it sound like this is going to be an RP-heavy type campaign, because fighting isn't necessarily everything that you'll be doing, right? Fighting inside Waterdeep is frowned upon, it sounds like. So it's going to be interesting how those mechanics work, how the guards work, how they try to keep the peace with because normally players are just slinging fireballs wherever they want,
now you're setting buildings on fire and stuff. You have to be a little more careful with your spells, which would, from somebody who likes to play wizards, being able to exchange all of those damaging spells for things like friends and charm person and like more of interrogation and scrying stuff, like that's got to be fun. Like you never get to use half of these spells you never use out in the wilderness because they're just not useful out there. Like I can't charm a basilisk, so.
And then the last thing I think I saw, September 6th was the date I wrote down that it'll be in game stores. And I think after that is when you can do your
2 weeks
pre-orders start getting shipped out. Yeah, that kind of stuff. They said the 4 words I heard them talk about when they were explaining the adventure: intrigue, stealth, wit, and diplomacy.
Yeah. Get your bards out.
And then and then one last side note, they actually brought in outside writers, and Matt Mercer was one of the ones that helped write the book.
Oh, fun. I didn't know that.
Along with James Heck and I think a couple other people. They brought in outside writers to participate and be part of the creation of this book. So it was,
and this was like people were, Chris Perkins was talking like this was his baby, right? He's just like, he's been working on this one for a long time, which is, I think, where everybody was like, they're going to go to Spelljammer and they're going to do all like planes hopping and all this other stuff, because why else would he be so excited about this baby adventure? But I really like that it's this kind of fun, self-contained city urban adventure. And I can totally see why he's getting excited about that, because it's new and it's different. It's not the end of the world anymore. It's like, how do I just solve this one problem with some really powerful villains? So that I can't necessarily, because I remember this from the stream as well. They were saying that you can't, or maybe it was from the video, but like you can't, you have very little hope of actually like attacking and defeating these villains. Like you have to use stealth and deceit and things like that to actually get through and stop them, as opposed to beating them into submission. So
so I think that'll be fun.
I'm excited.
It's interesting.
It woke
me right
up.
They made it sound like you could, even if Waterdeep doesn't exist in your campaign, you still can use this as a template for a large capital like city experience. It'll have plenty of the stuff that you need to bring it over. Even if you want your own pantheon, if you want your own set of good guys and villains and all of that stuff, it sounds like they'll have stuff in there to help you do that also. It doesn't just have to be Waterdeep, doesn't have to just be
easily reflavorable, which is again smart on their part and really awesome. It
seems like another DM book to me. I didn't hear anything in here that a player would buy this for. I did hear they have a bunch of new magic items in it, and they have a ton of NPC stat blocks.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for lots of stat blocks for lots of city dweller kind of people, there's going to be a lot of those kinds of things in here. So that's also going to be good. But it feels, again, like a pretty DM-centric module. But the art in it's an adventure, really
so... I mean, like any adventure, no player is running out and getting, Tomb of Annihilation and things like that. So,
well, I think the only reason they might is when they release something like a new race or a new class that is bundled with it, like they did with Princes of the Apocalypse. I think was kind of that way, because they brought in the Genasi, right? Or was
I think that was a free supplement, Temple of Elemental Evil supplement or something that they released alongside. Kind of like Tomb of Annihilation, they had the turtle, but they released like the turtle package along with it and stuff. So
even though I think it's in the book, I think that might be a reason somebody might grab something like that.
No, if you're a player and you're a collector, you're obviously going to pick this up. But like for the most part, I think this is for dungeon masters. And but I mean, every player should be a dungeon master at some point, is my opinion, because it's a lot of fun and it's a different, rewarding experience. So you should definitely pick this up. Maybe Wizards of the Coast did not sponsor us.
That's true. We're just super fans. The one question I want to ask, and maybe I'll try to tweet it out to them at some point, is how does this affect Adventures League? Because usually when you have a new storyline, you have a new season of Adventure League. So is there going to be a new season of Adventure League with this one? And if so, when's that going to start, and when do we start seeing some stuff on that?
I don't know when it's going to start, but during the Stream of Many Eyes, they did say that there was a villain that they just couldn't fit into the adventure because it was too big. So they took that villain and made him the central focus of the Adventure League storyline. So there is going to be an Adventure League storyline featuring this other villain that they just didn't have enough time for, but like a really prominent name, as they said. Like it's going to be, I mean, you'll know who it is kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I run a YouTube channel on D&D lore, but I'm not super well versed in all of the various characters of Faerun. But like I know Jarlaxle and things like that, but I'm really curious as to see. I keep saying that, but it's just like, it's so exciting. New adventure. Like, I don't know. I get all pumped. I get pumped for new books. So my copy of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes came in the mail like a couple days ago, and I've just been reading it like crazy. And side note, really enjoyed, like, I've read most of it now, but I've really enjoyed the section on dwarves. And I think that's what I said it earlier. Like, I want to have an all dwarf party. Like, after reading that, I really want to run a group of people that it's an all dwarf party because they're just super cool. And maybe it's because I made a dwarf wizard recently because I make characters when I'm bored at work. But I made a dwarf wizard, and I'm like, I really want to play this dwarf. Like, dwarves are so cool. So
yeah, I love the whole devil chapter.
Oh
it
yeah,
talked about
blood war
the
and
whole
stuff.
idea. Yeah,
so many
it's
ideas.
Just like that show, like Lucifer, where you have a likable character that is basically a fallen angel who is the devil who presides over hell. So normally that should be a character we all despise and hate. But in some ways, there's still something likable about that character. Mm-hmm. And so in a devil campaign, you can have that lawful evil villain that still has some type of likable quality about them that you just go, dang it, why do I like this bad guy? I don't understand why I like this bad guy. I should hate this guy, but he's kind of cool. He's kind of, I get, what's going on. So I like the idea of being able to create something like that. So maybe eventually. But.
Yeah. One of the things I think I was reading about the archdevils, the ones that like rule over a layer of hell, and they're able to cast the wish spell for a player if they say like devote your entire soul to me kind of a thing. And you were looking for that, like, how could I entice a player? Like, well, wish can do a lot of things. And if, it's like, okay, well, I need to save this orphanage from burning down to the ground. It's like, well, I can do that for you at a cost of your immortal soul. And I don't know, you were talking about having a fun adventure like that. And I'm like, it's there. Like, they're powerful beings. They could make bargains like that. So
yeah, that's exactly what I want it to be, a cool contract. And then they get used to go fight the demons, because that's what the devil's doing, is trying to keep the demons out of the realms, or trying to keep the demons from doing their thing. And I just thought, oh, that'd be cool. Evil using you to fight other evil was just a cool kind of storyline twist, I thought.
That's fun.
So I think that'd be fun.
Well, Mr. Lucian, what did you do in games this week?
Well, I had another week where a lot of stuff got pushed around and postponed. But starting out with Tuesday, we did Tomb of Annihilation. We were traveling in that from one region where we had just finished a main quest and needed to get to kind of where the next quest that we decided we wanted to tackle was. But between that is about, I don't know, a week's worth of travel through the jungle, maybe more. And so we dived deep into the random encounters table of Tomb of Annihilation as we track through this, this jungle. And so it's a lot about weather changes. It's a lot about stuff just randomly happening to you. Lots of combats are popping up that really aren't connected to anything. It's that kind of part of that module that is we need to travel somewhere. And we talked a little bit about last week where we said, do we just skip over those parts, or do we just make travel a skill check thing? But this is still back to old school. You're traveling, you roll on a random encounter table, a random encounter happens, you fight through that random encounter, and you move on. So this is kind of the quintessential what's normally been done. And it really felt like that. It really, the one thing that I think that we didn't remember to say or point out last week is, from a DM's point of view, we might think that's pretty boring. And we might be looking at ways, that's why me and you discussed it, ways that we would change it or make it different.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was sitting there doing it with a player, from a player perspective, here's why I did like it. Because I knew each of those encounters was getting me closer to 5th level. I didn't care that they weren't tied into a story. I didn't care that we came up with some cool mechanic. All I cared about was another 1,000 XP, because I'm so close to getting the 5th level, and that's so close to getting the ability I want, and continue my class build. So I was almost like, I'm glad he didn't come up with some crazy thing to just say, we won't worry about it. Let's just go to the next thing, because now I'm getting that XP. So I think sometimes as DMs, don't let yourself fall into the trap of not remembering why the players are there, right? The players' main motivation over everything, I want to RP, I want to sit with my friends. I think even more than any of that is either I want to get a really cool item, or I want to get to my next level. And that's what's going to drive me to come over to your house and spend 4 more hours next Sunday, afternoon, because there's a chance for me to get an item from you, or I'm going to finally get to that next level where I get this next cool ability.
So did it still feel like slogging through, like you were saying? I mean, even though you were just like, well, at least I'm getting experience points, like, is that enough motivation for a player?
Yes.
Well, it is, I guess, but like, is it a healthy motivation? Like, can you make that slog less of a slog? I don't know.
Yes, if you give me the same XP.
Yeah.
Because I made almost enough to go from 4th level to 5th level in the 3 encounters that we had.
Okay.
So if we're going to do just a skill challenge, which is fun, and maybe there's a dice rolling game going on, or like a rock, paper, scissors mechanic, or a card game that you come up with, that all seems fun. If at the end of that there's been no experience,
you'd much rather
you're
just
cheating
fight
your
through.
player a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, give me a 4th encounter. I kept hoping when he rolled the encounter and says, oh, you guys made your survival check, nothing happens today. I'm like, damn it. Like, give us some more, because give us some more goblins, give us some more orcs, because we want to get to the 5th level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was me as a greedy player sitting and thinking about it from a player's perspective. So that was something that taught me again to remember that sometimes our motivations are not exactly the same. Yes, they want a good story. It's cool if you're super descriptive about your world. It's cool if you have introduced new mechanics and things that are happening. But in the end, make sure you're at least given the same XP you would have gotten if you replace a feature.
Yeah.
I
think my next game is going to be, I'm gonna actually hand out experience points. And that's really easy for encounters. Like, you know how much a monster is worth, but it's going to be difficult being like, okay, this like role play session, how much is it worth, or something like that. So maybe I'll have like a base, like, you're going to earn at least 200 experience tonight, no matter what we do, because we're going to play for 3 or 4 hours. And then on top of that 200 experience is the monsters that you fight, is the mechanic that I was thinking of using. But because I want to, I don't know, playing an Adventure League where you only get experience for monsters, it's taken forever to level up. And I'm just kind of like, oh my God. And I haven't been to every session, but like for example, in Adventure League, I'm getting ahead of myself because it's not my turn. But the guys I play with, they leveled up last night. And when you hit level 4, you can spend downtime to automatically go to level 5. So now I'm still level 3 with like 600 experience to go, and they're level 5. And I'm just kind of like, oh, like I wish we were all at the same level. I really wish I had not, missed these last couple sessions, because it would have been nice to get some extra experience points. But
yeah. And it's interesting. Maybe we'll come back to that when you're talking about it. Is that because I'm playing Adventure League, but I'm playing Tomb of Annihilation Adventure League, which is the current storyline, but it doesn't sound like you're doing anything in the current Adventure League.
No, we're playing Forges of Fury from Tales of the Yawning Portal. So he's literally just running that module for us as Adventure League rules. So yeah. So it's kind of a different experience, even though we're both talking about the same thing or doing the same thing. So that's interesting. I did want to say I noticed Agrippa was going to leave chat there real quick, and she had mentioned, remember that it's Women in Gaming events all month, this month, and all weekend. There's lots of stuff going on, so support all of your people that you know that are playing role-playing games. And I know it's also like Pride Month, so there's a lot of people that are doing all kinds of events, like PB's writing a whole Pride event thing for an adventure. And so definitely support all those people that you know, and all those inclusive people. Get more people into the hobby, make sure they feel welcome, do what you can
to diversify where you can.
Yeah, lots of people are doing some really cool stuff. So go check them out and listen to some podcasts and listen to some live chats. That's not just a couple of white guys hanging out and talking about D&D. Although we appreciate it. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. So that was pretty good. And that was kind of what I came out of that Tomb of Annihilation session. Our Thursday night game got rescheduled. I'm in the middle of trying to buy a house, sell a house, and get a bunch of stuff done. And that kind of fell in the way. So sometimes that happens. But it looks like we're going to play on Monday night. We're going to move our Borderlands. That's our West Marches schedule. So I thought we'll get to play there. We're going to have our Sunday interview with Marcy Vellon is tomorrow. She's big into the Monty Cook and the Numenera community. Has played in a lot of their games, played on a bunch of streams that are real popular out there. She GMs all the time. Probably going to be at Gen Con, does a lot of stuff. We're going to talk to her and really get to know her a little bit better. And hopefully she'll be in one of our games at some point. I met her when I got to play in a charity game that was a Numenera charity game, and she was one of the players, and that's how I met her. And it was really fun playing a game with her, and I talked about, hey, let's get you on for an interview and keep this thing going, because she was super fun. So that's tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then the rest of today is working on the house, but the D&D stuff's coming up. I did see one more question I'll answer before I throw it over to Jordan for his time. It said, what is your favorite of the characters you DM for right now? That, sir, or ma'am, or person, they or them, is a tough question, because not only do I have a fantastic group I GM for from the McLancy Waddle group, which is Jordan and Graybeard and PB and Magpie, and they all have awesome characters, like super awesome characters. Griselda, Uretzi, Blaze, and Eldath, right?
Egglith, yeah.
Egglith, that's right. I always get those.
We always get his name mixed up, though. I feel like I named him incorrectly, because and I've even defaulted to like Eldath or something, and I'm like, but that's a god. We needed, yeah. So I love those characters, but I also love my West Marches party, which they are so into their RP. They're so into their backstory. They've got the young kid who got touched by a ghost and is now like 60 years old, and he's role-playing that to the hilt. And we've got our fighter is changed to be a cleric to bring back the old gods. We have a druid who hates technology and thinks books try to put thoughts into his mind, so he's very, just really crazy when he's around books. And then we have a mage who plays like he's Sherlock Holmes, like his mind goes into a mind space and he can put things. It's just this whole really good character group that I love all their characters. I can't pick one. I don't think I can pick just a single character that's my favorite. Though Griselda is high up on that, probably. I would say probably that. Bodoff is a really good character right now, and Boone is another good character. So those are probably mine. You guys can catch all that stuff out on my YouTube channel and my VODs, but I can't pick one. Sorry. So, Jordan, how or what have you been doing in D&D this week? Oh, man. Let me look at some notes, because I feel like I had a lot to talk about. So this last Sunday, I ran a module called Scarab of Death, which is this really cool 3-hour one-shot for high-level characters, for level 10 characters, to solve a murder. And the cool thing about it is that it incorporates a lot of these things like Speak with the Dead, Scrying, Zone of Truth, all of these spells that you can use to kind of, well, the guy's dead, let's just speak to the dead and see who killed him. Or this happened, how to, da-da-da-da. And so it incorporates all of those so that your players can still utilize those functions, but when they utilize them, it just adds to the mystery. So when they speak to dead with the guy, he doesn't know what killed him. It kind of feels like an accident. It kind of feels like somebody was out to get him, but he doesn't know. If you use Zone of Truth on some of these people, turns out they're all telling the truth, but they can't all be telling the truth because somebody murdered this guy and something happened to cause this problem. How can you be telling the truth when, and I'll give you an example. This character was basically in two places at the same time. you find out through the adventure. And so they ask him, like, where were you today? And he's like, well, I was upstairs. And then they ask the other guy, like, well, where did you see him? Well, I saw him outside at the exact same time. And we have to kind of create a timeline so that people could figure out where people were at what time and how this was even possible. But everyone's telling the truth. So I told my players afterwards that I'm like, VIP of the night was Zone of Truth, because my paladin took Zone of Truth as a random spell and then utilized that to really figure out that there was discrepancies with people's memories. And why there was discrepancies with people's memories is the puzzle that they had to solve. We had a lot of fun. I was not anticipating it to go over as well as it did, but everyone really got into it. I have one role player who doesn't role play a ton, but he loves the game, but he just doesn't like jump in a ton. But there got to a point where he was like, okay, and he's a fighter, and he's like, okay, it's time for us to put diplomacy to the side, and I'm going to step in. And he rolled a bunch of intimidation checks and really got into it with like, where's this guy and who are you working for and all this other stuff. So just super fun. Everyone kind of jumped in, and I don't want to spoil it because you should all go and read it if you want a high level murder mystery. It's called Scarab of Death. It's on the Dungeon Masters Guild. In fact, on the YouTube channel, I'll put links in the doobly-doo so you guys can like check it out. I don't know. It was just super fun, and it was a fun little break. After that, though, players were just kind of like, okay, we solved this puzzle, or we solved this murder. The client that they solved the murder for, the guy that's being accused of murder who says, I didn't do it, he runs a magic emporium. So they said, well, can we buy stuff from this magic emporium? We want to spend our money, basically. So my players have been accumulating money for 10 levels now, and they haven't really had a chance to spend it. We're in a big city. There's a magic emporium. I said, sure, you can spend your money. So I came up with a bunch of stuff from, I've got like a paper here that I like wrote, but I came up with a bunch of items that I thought they might be interested in, like consumable items they can purchase, but also magic items that I deem are not going to break the campaign that they can purchase. And we're going to roll on the magic item price. And I think that's I wrote it down here. It's from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, where if it's a common, you roll a 1d6 times 100. If it's very rare, it's 1d4 plus 1 times 10,000 gold pieces. And so using this, we can see how much money. Do you want to pool your money together and get a very rare item? Do you want to buy individual items for yourself? It's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do. But I had a patron actually, and I was talking to him about my dilemma with this, and he was saying like, well, talk to your players and see like, what do they want? Do they really want a +2 weapon, or do they really want like a carpet of flying, or do they really want just a whole bunch of potions to kind of stay alive, and see what they want that they can spend their money on. But yeah, so I'm really excited. We're gonna have some items that they can buy. I'm also going to see if they want to craft a magic item and kind of spend some downtime to do that. And then I'm also going to see if they want to buy new skills, because that's in Xanathar's Guide as well. Like, do you want to spend a certain amount of money and downtime to get trained in a new language or get proficiency in a new skill? So I think with all of those, they should probably drain their coppers really quickly, because they're going to have too much to spend their money on, I think. So hopefully they'll be happy. And so this upcoming session is going to be that, and then transitioning them from that to this dig site that I keep talking about, where they're trying to uncover this inverted pyramid. It's a upside down pyramid in the dirt that they found, and they want to explore. And that's going to be the big dungeon that I put my players in, and they have to like explore around and stuff. So we'll see what goes from there.
That is a cool chapter in Xanathar's Guide. I used it in my West Marches game.
Yeah.
To do a downtime month, because I wanted the characters to have like a month of time where they were just back in town. They need to spend some money. They need to earn ways or build stuff. Like a couple of my players, one's a poisoner and he wanted to create poison. So we need a time or a space that could happen.
Yeah.
And we needed rules on how would that work. So Xanathar's kind of added enough of it that I could muddle through and get something going. Not that it couldn't be fleshed out a little bit too, but that, it gives you a good starting point to say, okay, if you have an alchemist in the party, you have a woodworker or a blacksmith, and he says, hey, I'm a blacksmith. Can I build a sword? And you're like, well, sure, there's no reason you can't. You're a blacksmith. Let's figure out what it's going to take for you to build a sword, kind of thing. So I think that's kind of cool. And like you said, magic items that don't break the game. Because 5e, if there's a flaw I'm starting to see in 5e, is that the game doesn't react well to mass amounts of magic items because it just throws. Like
4th edition was very, it was balanced around the party getting magical items, and I think 5th edition was balanced around no magical items. So the minute you throw in a +1 sword or a +1 this, or even like a cape of flying or invisibility or something, all of a sudden the game is just really broken. So, but luckily they have this magic item price, which I'm really thankful for, because now I know, like, I've handed out gold appropriate to their levels, and now that they're level 10, they have a lot of gold, but even at level 10, they could still only collectively buy one very rare item and a couple of rare items. So they're not overly breaking the game. Like, I'm not giving them a legendary item, nor will they be able to purchase a legendary item because they just don't have the money for it. So I will say that it's balanced in that respect, but no, you're right. Like, if you're like me and you hand out too many magic items because you think magic items are fun, you kind of break your game early. So
yeah, you gotta be a little careful. And even in the regular adventures they're putting out, I have not seen like big, like in Storm King's Thunder, there's not a lot of magic items just being tossed to the players, even though they're going through the whole adventure as written in the book. I'm hardly changing anything. I'm playing as written almost, and my players complain constantly that I'm super stingy and I don't give them enough magic items. And it's just like, this game is geared because you have so many abilities and so many things that are happening that it's not gonna be a high magic game. But in some ways we're in Forgotten Realms, which is a high magic realm. So it's weird. It's the one thing that is jarring the setting, I think, a little bit, because Forgotten Realms is supposed to be high magic, but yet we're playing almost low magic in that way.
Yeah.
So it's like, it feels like the Matrix, right? The little stutter frame that you see every now and then, or the little cat that goes by twice, but then everything else seems normal. It's just this little grating thing on me that doesn't quite fit right. There's something there that's not quite right, so.
Yeah. And like, even, I guess I'm going to ask you this question about Storm King's Thunder, like even consumables, because are there not a lot of potions? Are there not a lot of spell scrolls?
Not a ton.
Because it really makes me wonder about, like, wizards. If I play a wizard, I want to collect spells. Like, I want to flush out my spell book as best I can. But if you don't find spells, then I would be really disheartened as a wizard, where it's just like, okay, I'm now level 6 and I found 0 spells to write into my spell book. Like, that's kind of what I do as a wizard.
In a year and a half, and they are level 6 characters now, I believe they found one cache of scrolls off of one of the quests that had a chance for them to maybe write in 3 spells. And I think he failed the roll.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it was terrible. Yeah. Potions in the whole game that they've gotten. Now, they've tried to buy potions left and right.
Mm-hmm.
But just like potions they found while adventuring, maybe 4. And we're halfway through the module at this point. A few other things that they get that they hoard. There'll be things like spider climb stuff or bracers of the wind, or these other things that could be used if they put a little bit more thought into it. But they're just so much about it doesn't do damage. It just sits in their pack. So, but not a lot of stuff, not a lot of rings, not a lot of cloaks or boots of this or that, or like I've even thrown in some stuff because they've complained. So like one of our guys has a belt of giant kind, and like hardly any weapons at all.
Mm-hmm. I love making my own magic items though too. Like a lot of the items that I've given to my players, I think maybe 2 of them are from the DMG, and the rest of them are just stuff that I've made because I think it's really fun to have like a sword that does extra cold damage, or I did a sword that sometimes I'll take spells and turn it into an item. So I did a sword that can cast the gust spell so that they can like, push enemies around with this wind spell.
Yeah.
Like it's just fun making magic items. So especially when you can cater them to a guy like Like I've got a monk and he's got key points and stuff. I've been working on making a magic item that he could sacrifice hit dice for more key points. So maybe like for every 2 hit dice he like puts into this magic item, like his own health, he could get 1 key point out of it, which would benefit him to have extra key points and stuff. It's just fun making magic items like that.
Yeah. My favorite one is still the flail that your character got that allows them to power up the flail's damage, but he has to hit himself with it. He has to strike himself with a full hit. So it's like an automatic hit, roll the damage dice, take it, but now that flail for the next minute has an extra dice of damage.
Yeah.
And if you want to hit yourself again, you can get another extra dice of damage. So it's this fun place of how much do I power it up before I just start unleashing it on the mobs.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm taking damage from that whole thing. So I think
that's the whip of Loviatar, because my character worships the goddess of pain. And so we created this whip where he has to hurt himself in order to do more damage. And so that's really fun because you want to like roll really low when you hit yourself. And I think I did a couple times. I like hurt myself once and I rolled like 1 damage. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I took 1 damage to do an extra 2d6 to these other enemies. Like that's a fair trade, but you could do 6 damage to yourself or 8 damage. Like it was a fun mechanic, and it's like a risk reward, like back and forth. So yeah, that was a fun item
and fit the character. Like it
very
fit
much
exactly
fit the character.
what the character was. Yeah. That's what I liked about it a lot.
That was fun. Yep. And then what else did I do? I've been playing in Adventure League. I tweeted about this, that I find it really funny that I've gone to Adventure League enough now that I have like friends and I know the people that go there, and I get really excited to see the people that I adventure with. I know very few of their real names. I only know their character names, and I find that oddly funny that I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, no, that's Chafe, and that's like Sir Henry, and that's, blah, blah, blah. I know the DM's name is Jason, and that's about it. But like the rest of it, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I only know your character name. And now we started a Discord randomly so that we can kind of talk out of the game and see who's going to be there for the following weeks. And we've all plugged in our character names. So I'm like, this still doesn't help me. I'm just going to know you as your various characters as opposed to real life people.
Yeah,
but
your online name or whatever. Yeah, I have a hobby that I do that's the SCA, and we reenact medieval society or combat and stuff. But that's how everybody... So you get there and you know everybody by Sir Logan or, Sergeant Sasha or, Lady Arabella or, Her Majesty and all this stuff. But then when you see their Facebook name, you're like, who's this Don, whoever person? I'm like, I don't even know that name. I just know their SCA name. Or even online, like when my wife talks about, hey, I'm going to go down to the game store. I'm going to meet up with Graybeard. And that's his online name. That's not his real name. She's like, who? Why do you know anybody that's named Graybeard? Or why do you know Sniper 49? I'm going to go down to the store and meet Sniper 49 real quick. Because that's just how we know people now. Sometimes is by, it's like their nickname, I guess, has come from their handle, their gamer handle, or whatever hobby handle. And so I think it's funny that's true. And like mine is Lucian. That's not my name.
No, my wife asks me all the time, you're like, what's his name? I'm like, it's Lucian. It's like, what's his real name? Lucian.
Lucian? Yeah.
It's like never really had a reason to ask.
It's Dan. Just so we all are clear. So you have my wife it took her a long time for me to convince her that you can have real and true friends online that are as close and as good a friend as you could have in real life. She just didn't believe it was possible. She's just like, there's no way you can't have a friend at the same level as you have somebody that lives in your town and comes over to your house. And I'm like, no, I can, because online I can talk to them nightly. Like I don't talk to that person who comes over to my house once every 2 weeks and maybe comes and sits down, talks to us for an hour, and then we consider them a friend, and that's it. Whereas I talk to my online friends every single night for 4 or 5 hours. I know everything that's going on in their lives. They know what's going on in my lives, even though I've never met this person who lives in Washington, or I've never met Jordan physically, in Idaho. I have never met, anybody that's here in Michigan. I would go and meet them. But it's funny how you can have an actual fulfilling relationship or a friendship that happens nowadays. It's not just about they have to be able to come over and sit at your table kind of thing.
Yep, for sure. It's a different world. It's lots of fun. And then in Adventure League, well, that's about it for Adventure League, I guess. I mentioned earlier that my the two guys at our table are now going to be level 5. which might actually be to the benefit of us, because if they decide to stay with my adventure and the table that we're at, we desperately need like higher level characters, because I think there was 9 or 10 troglodytes that kept crawling out of the water towards us, and we had to end the fight because it was time to go home, so we had to stop right before that battle started. And I'm looking at this like, I've got 1 spell slot left. I don't know how we're gonna do this. So next weekend will be really interesting, and we'll see. Yeah, something really interesting that did happen is we were fighting a giant lizard, and I never caught what the monster was in the monster manual. But it had a swallow mechanic, and so our fighter was just close enough, because this lizard was chained. It had a chain against the wall, but he was just close enough that the lizard was able to bite him and swallow him whole. But the bite killed him outright, and then he swallowed the body. And we were all sitting there like, how do we get this guy out? Like, what do we do? Like, I don't know what to do. I literally didn't know what to do. There was another bard at the table who cast Dissonant Whispers to make the monster like scared. And I think our DM was just being friendly and nice. He's like, yeah, he regurgitates the body as he runs away because he's scared. And then we grabbed the body, pulled it back. I did some cure wounds on him. But that was one of those just like, oh my God, like we need to.
Yeah, we had that happen. We had it in Storm King's Thunder. They fought a Remoraz. Remoraz has the swallow ability. The Dwarven Barbarian, played by Greybeard, ran up, taking a ton of damage, because even when you hit it, you take damage back. He's a barbarian, but it's fire damage. He not only dies from that, but gets swallowed. He's inside. So I have to start thinking about, wait a minute, how's he going to do death saves on the inside? Because you take damage continually when you're swallowed. And so I'm like, oh, he's going to take 1 hit. If you take damage when you're down, that's like 2 crits.
Yeah.
That's like 2 fails. So I'm like, that's it. He's got 1 round or he's out. And the party realized he had died at the same time being swallowed. And they immediately unloaded everything they had to kill the Remoraz so that they could cut him out of there. Because I was nice enough to figure if they killed it, then I was going to let them just cut it out without him having to make any more death saves. Right. But if it was still alive when that next round came around, I was going to have him take damage, and he was going to take his 2 fails. And then he'd have 1 round left, and then it would be like, what do you guys do? Do you recover the body and get it resurrected?
Yeah.
Because you're high enough level and you start spending that money? Or does that character start rolling up another character that we introduced to the party? So
yeah, it
is an interesting... and they got super focused and fearful, and like they were scared. Their adrenaline was running when it all happened. Was too, it made for an exciting thing to happen all of a sudden.
No, that was like, and I literally turned to them. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do we do? And so thankfully our GM was nice, but also thankfully we had that extra spell just to kind of make it happen. But yeah, and that's really it. I'm like 400, 500 experience away from level 4, which would then allow me to bump up to level 5. And I'm really enjoying this bard character. I'm painting more minis. So I painted my bard mini, which was really fun. And yeah, I'm just kind of enjoying that. I'm really excited for my session tomorrow, and we're going to go shopping spree, and then more information on them getting to this dig site. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. So at 5,
your character solidifies. You're not going to make any changes?
Nope. I haven't made any changes to, well, I've made 1 change, but yeah, once he gets to level 5, he'll be solidified.
What's your subclass?
College of Swords.
Okay, so you're playing College of Swords, bard, human?
Nope, half-elf.
Half-elf, College of Swords, bard. Yep. Cool.
Although I really like the idea of this dwarven transmuter wizard that I kind of made, and I was like, well, I could just shift him over, but I don't like the name. I don't want to give him the name of my half-elf guy, and that's the one thing that has to stay the same as the name.
That's the thing that has to stay the same. Yeah. So, I got the same thing. My Raki Stormborn, that's his name, is a human barbarian zealot.
Yeah.
So Path of the Zealot. But I'm thinking, do I change him now? Because I'm about to hit 5th level. It's about to solidify. What do I do? Do I want to try something else? I'm agonizing because I love playing lots of different characters. So I'm thinking about maybe I should switch just so I could play a whole totally different cool character. Like you said, a Blade Pact of the Blade Warlock.
Yeah, I was saying that earlier. That I made a Pact of the Blade Warlock because an archfey. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, I get tons of ideas for characters, and then I sit at work bored, and so I make characters at work sometimes. Shh, don't tell anyone. Don't tell my work. Thank you guys so much.
I was making a Black Panther character that I keep thinking I want to try to play too, like based on what Black Panther would be.
Oh, that'd be fun, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I did see a question in chat for you.
Oh, yeah. I should open up chat.
Do you have a preference for a character you DM for?
A preference for a character I DM for? Like a favorite?
I'm thinking that's what they meant. Yeah, I'm thinking who's your favorite character that you DM for them? You gotta say your wife. She's in the house.
Yeah, like there's my wife's ranger character who has a Fey Corgi steed that's really fun. I have one player that we play with a homebrew race called Mouse Folk, and she's basically a large anthropomorphic mouse. And I was really happy that player decided to do that. So originally I had used this race to create an NPC. When my players went to the Feywild, I had this like tribe of mice that lived there. And then I was telling her about it. I'm like, you're going to be found in this tribe of mice. And she's like, well, can I be a mouse? And I'm like, I'm so excited that you wanted to be a mouse because I think it's really fun. And they get like dodge as a minor action and things like that. They can, or a bonus action. They can do some cool stuff. But it seemed pretty balanced as far as races. And so that's been fun because I don't want to say that she's my favorite player, but like I really love that character. She's playing a mouse paladin, and we have a lot of fun where she goes into towns, and I'm just like, oh, your pet mouse, and we always make jokes that players don't understand that this like armored mouse is actually a living or a sentient creature as opposed to some kind of like pet. So it's been lots of fun.
No, that is good.
But yeah, with that, we're at an hour, folks. So we're going to take off. Thank you guys so much for watching the Saturday Morning D&D show. Always wonderful to see your bright, shining faces in chat, and loving the comments on YouTube as well that Lucian and I check. So thank you guys so much for leaving comments and questions and things like that. Yeah, with that, more Stream of Many Eyes is probably happening right now, so you can tune into that. And I just want to say thanks again. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do.
Well, that's what I'm doing.
So I'll see you guys later. Bye. We'll see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D show. Woo!